So my name is Mark Horton. My Chinese name is Ying. I am the Chief Instructor of the Ying Association, which is an international organization spread over a number of countries. I started training when I was around 7.5 years old. Well, first, when I was 6, I did some boxing with the British ABA. That was for about a year, and then my family moved to Asia because my father was in the Air Force. One day on the air base where we were posted, there was a demonstration, and there was a demonstration by the local Kung Fu school. Some of those guys were also guys in the Air Force. I saw these guys leaping around, doing flying kicks. For me at that time was just waving swords around, doing some amazing stuff. From that day, basically, I wanted to do that sport. So I asked my dad if I could do that sport. He went off to find a school. And at that time, it wasn't actually allowed for non-Chinese to learn Kung Fu. So we had to wait around about a year, and then there was a decision made that they were going to open the doors to non-Chinese people, and then I was able to register for the school. That was in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia, in a small town called Petaling Jaya. That was the Chang Choi Le Fat School. So that's where I started. And that was around, let's say 1969, and now we're in 2019, so I've been training quite a long time. I practice essentially Chinese martial arts and Western boxing, predominantly Tai Chi Chuan, Shaolin Chole Fat Kung Fu. I practice all the different weapons of Chinese martial arts, which is about 56 different weapons, and I've been fighting in every possible system I could get my hands on since I was a teenager. My favorite principle is work hard. I think everybody in life, whatever you do, if you work hard, you can be successful, and to develop yourself to a higher level in anything takes a little more effort. So I believe very strongly in working hard, and I think that's a good ethic for anybody to have in their life. As far as competitions, I started competing when I was 12 years old, and I've continued to compete as much as possible in Asia throughout my whole career. I started fighting. The first proper matches I had, which were amateur, were from about the age of 14, which were full contact sanda, which is Chinese kickboxing. Then later, when my family moved back to the UK, then I spent some years fighting around the circuits in UK. So basically anywhere where there was a competition, I would go and try to compete in that. It may be one week a point fighting competition, the next week a boxing match, the week after that a kickboxing match. Just trying to build as much as possible my experience. And then when I was around 18, 19, then I did my first pro fights. Obviously a pro fight is if you get paid for it. And that was all under boxing and kickboxing and point fighting. I still continue to fight today. I'm not 100% sure if I'm finished with competition. My last World Championships, I won 8 gold medals. I've won a lot of things, done hundreds and hundreds of competitions all over the world. But when you have a competitive edge, it's very difficult to stop. So I'm not sure yet if I've actually stopped or not. So when I started training, I trained in Malaysia under Sifu Chang Choi, who passed away a number of years ago. That was a very traditional martial arts school. Most of the students were Chinese. I was the only Westerner in the whole school. Then when we moved back to the UK, there were no Kung Fu schools. This is around the time when Bruce Lee was in the movies, and I was attending a competition. I competed in fighting and in forms and won all the divisions. As I left the sport floor, a little Chinese guy called out to me, "Choi Le Fat, Choi Le Fat." He recognized the system that I was performing. He introduced himself. His name was Li He Huang. And he was actually a very high-level Kung Fu master who had to leave Hong Kong. He'd settled in England where he had a restaurant, and he had no students, and he took me on as a private student. So I trained with him for about the next 10 years, one-on-one. He taught me so much about fighting. He was a very, very, very fast, very vicious fighter, and he gave me a particular edge in fighting. But unfortunately, when I was 24, he passed away from cancer, from stomach cancer. So for a few years, I didn't have a teacher. I was trying to get accepted by who I considered to be the highest level Chole Foot Kung Fu master in the world, which was a guy called Grandmaster Dok Fei Wong. He was based in America, in San Francisco. He was the guy that I considered to be the highest level remaining in the world. After trying for about 3 years and being constantly rejected by him, I had to really prove that my worth. He finally accepted me as a student, and that was about 30 years ago, and he's been my teacher ever since then. He's basically the highest living Kung Fu master still alive, and he's my teacher. It's constant training, because I'm teaching at least 5 days a week. I'm in the school constantly, and I have a huge passion for training. So if I spend a day and I don't train, then I feel like I've wasted a day. I want to wake up every day feeling my muscles, feeling that my body is strong and healthy, and I'm able to work with ease. I think the most important thing we can take care of in our lives is our health. We have a saying, health is wealth. If I look at my own teacher and his teacher, and I see those guys in their 70s or even in their 90s, and they're still very strong and healthy and active, that's something I'd like to do as well. I have children, I have 3 daughters, and I'd like to stay healthy and strong for them as long as possible. I think also if you have a healthy body, it enables you to keep a healthy mind. This is, for me, one of the biggest inspirations of all, especially in the 21st century, where people are living under such pressure. You see so many people being unable to deal with stress or the pressures of society, and a lot of that is just down to having a healthy mind and a healthy body. The biggest inspiration of all should be your own health. Obviously, for somebody like myself who's a professional athlete, it becomes a routine to train every day. And the key there is the word routine. So if you're in a situation, let's say that you're a middle-aged guy or a middle-aged lady and you're feeling a little unhealthy, then probably the most important thing to do is not to set yourself some crazy goal. Just try to set yourself some small goals and then build a routine into your life. So there are certain things we do every day. We eat every day. We talk to people every day. We clean up our house every day. We go to work every day. So a little bit of training every day, and I'm talking a little bit of training, maybe only 5 or 10 minutes in your whole day, will make a big difference to how you feel. It will make a big difference to your energy levels. And if you do something with your body, it will always make your mind feel better. So the most important thing is, don't look at somebody like me who's a professional. Just try to set yourself a couple of goals. Maybe it's walking up and down the stairs 5 or 6 times just to make your legs work a little harder. Maybe it's when you're watching TV, don't just sit there, but maybe do some leg raises, or you can sit there and pick up a heavy book while you're watching TV. Anything that you do to benefit your physical health will also benefit your mental and emotional health. And keep it going, a few weeks, a couple of months, and it will become a very regular part of your life. And you'll start to feel much, much better. Well, first of all, nobody's ever too old to learn. As soon as you have that mindset, then you're pretty much done with living. The longer you keep learning, actually, the more active your brain stays. My oldest student in this school is a lady. She's 87 years old. She had a double hip replacement 3 years ago, a double knee replacement 5 years ago. She practices Tai Chi with us about 5 days a week. And the other day she trains at home. This is a lady who lives independently, is very strong, and still rides around on her bicycle, does her own shopping, and has a very active mind because she's learning a system. As soon as we stop learning, then part of our brain, which deals with learning and retaining information, starts to shut down. If it's not used, it's like a muscle. If you don't use a muscle, it will basically waste away. Your brain is the same. If you continue to learn, and I see this from the generation of my teacher's teacher, the old generation, they're in their 90s, but they're active in the brain because they still keep learning, trying to retain information, and staying active physically and mentally. So personally, I don't think you're ever too old to learn. Kung Fu is quite hard, but it can be adapted to any person on the planet Earth. So I have people who are super fit, and I have other people who are really unfit. Some people who can do amazing things, and some people who have difficulty doing even the most simple things. But everybody learns at their own pace. And if you find a good teacher who is patient and understanding, then they will always be able to give you something to help you develop. For me personally, because I've achieved a lot in the martial arts and I've won a lot of tournaments and won so many medals, I often get asked by people, when am I going to quit? And sometimes I think they ask me that question because it makes them feel better to think that I might quit one day because they don't do anything. I can't actually envisage a day when I ever quit. Because, as I said earlier, I want to stay strong and healthy for as long as possible, for my students, for my children, for myself. Probably I will drop dead flying through the air with a kick, and I'll never see the landing. Something like that.